I married thinking I'd found the one person I'd grow old with. But between years 3 and 5, my wife Grace became someone completely unrecognizable to me. I'm Dean, 36, a project manager at a Chicago tech firm earning $85,000 annually. I never cheated, never gambled, never gave anyone a legitimate reason to leave. Yet somehow being a decent husband fell short. The shift happened gradually, like hidden rot spreading inside the walls. You only notice once the structure is already compromised. Grace began spending increasing time with her friend Monica, a divorced woman who appeared to have turned resentment toward men into her primary occupation. Overnight, every discussion felt like facing a hostile interrogation from someone who'd already pronounced me guilty. Her mother made it worse, ringing during dinner with constant remarks about how a friend's daughter wed a surgeon or how a neighbor's son-in-law purchased a yacht, quiet jabs implying I never measured up. Intimacy vanished first, not suddenly, but gradually, as though someone slowly lowered the temperature until the chill became unbearable. She'd come to bed later each night, phone in hand, always with another reason. I tried to be patient because that's what marriage requires, right? Patience eventually became weeks, then months. Whenever I reached out, even just to hold her hand, I received the same rejection, the same exhausted exhale as if I were an inconvenience she had to endure. Monica visited frequently, easily 3 evenings a week. They'd sit sipping wine, speaking in hushed tones that halted the moment I entered the room. I'd overhear fragments, grievances about husbands, about men in general, about how women should be treated like royalty. Grace began echoing those exact phrases, tossing around terms like emotional labor and mental load that I'd never heard from her lips before, suddenly casting me as the antagonist in a narrative I hadn't signed up for. Her mom's video calls during meals stretched 40 minutes while our food turned cold. When I gently suggested calling back afterward, I was instantly labeled controlling. Work turned into my safe haven, which is depressing. I started anticipating the office because at least their people offered me ordinary courtesy. At home, I felt like I was tiptoeing across fragile glass, never certain what would trigger the next explosion. I began observing patterns. How her face brightened at every phone notification, yet she scarcely glanced up when I walked through the door. How she spent ages preparing to see Monica but wouldn't change out of yoga pants for me. How mysterious charges appeared on our credit card from shops I didn't recognize, all while she insisted we couldn't afford any enjoyable outings. My brother Jake, up in Wisconsin, checked in monthly and kept inviting me to his lake house. He said I sounded strained, but Grace always produced some excuse preventing me from going. Then came the evening in late April that shifted everything. I arrived home around 7:00, exhausted yet upbeat because I just secured a big contract promising a $5,000 bonus. I stepped inside hoping we might celebrate, maybe dinner at her favorite Italian spot, a simple, normal conversation like before. Grace sat on the couch with her laptop, didn't lift her eyes when I greeted her. I shared the news about the deal and bonus, wishing the positive update might pierce the barrier she'd constructed. She replied, "That's great," eyes glued to the screen, voice carrying zero enthusiasm. I showered, returned in relaxed clothes, hoping the mood would improve. I sat beside her, keeping careful distance, and after a moment gently placed my hand on her leg, just an ordinary affectionate gesture couples share. She flinched away violently. "Don't touch me," she stated flatly, icily. I withdrew immediately, bewildered, and asked what was wrong. She finally met my gaze, her expression pure revulsion. "I have dignity," she declared, stressing each syllable. "I'm not going to let you put your hands on me whenever the mood strikes you." The statement struck hard, not from volume, but from its casual cruelty. transforming a tender touch into something sordid and entitled. I asked what she meant, keeping my tone steady. She rolled her eyes, slammed the laptop shut, stood, and announced she was going to bed. "You can take the guest room tonight." I need space. Space from the husband who worked 50 hours weekly to cover expenses. Space from the man who never raised a finger against her, never belittled her, never gave cause for such treatment. I didn't chase her, didn't plead, didn't argue. I simply sat there feeling something fundamental inside me fracture. Not exactly my heart, but my readiness to keep accepting whatever crumbs remained. I hardly slept, just lay awake replaying how we reached this point. The following morning Grace emerged looking rested, brewed coffee for herself alone. Acted as though the previous night never occurred. She casually mentioned meeting Monica for lunch and needing cash for new outfits. Normal roommate chat, no trace of marriage left. That's when realization hit. Call it exhaustion or simply waking up. She asked me to send her $500 for shopping, said it as casually as requesting the remote. I looked straight at her, saw the expectation in her gaze, and answered quietly, "No." Confusion flickered across her face. I continued, "I have dignity too. And I'm not going to bankroll a life for someone who treats me like dirt under my own roof." The quiet that followed was absolute. You could hear the wall clock ticking, nothing else. Her expression cycled rapidly: bewilderment, astonishment, fury, incredulity, then a frozen mask. She asked me to repeat myself, voice low and threatening. I did, deliberately slower. She let out a harsh, artificial laugh, the sound people make when reality won't compute. She called me absurd, said $500 was trivial, insisted I existed to provide for her. I remained composed, explained that support and respect flow in both directions. I refused to be her unlimited card while she recoiled from my touch. That unleashed the full storm. She screamed about control, about weaponizing money, about how every man behaves this way. I stood silently, sipping coffee, letting the tirade run its course. When she paused for air, I said I was heading to the gym, then to Mark's for poker night. She ordered me to cancel, claimed we had to discuss things immediately. I replied we could talk tomorrow, picked up my keys, and left while she was still shouting. That gym session felt liberating, each lift shedding layers of built-up bitterness, each mile erasing the spineless version of myself I'd tolerated too long. Poker night at Mark's was meant to be relief. Just me and 4 college buddies around the table with cards and drinks. Mark's place was 20 minutes away, proper setup, nights scheduled twice monthly. I arrived around 8:00, feeling freer than I had in ages. The guys were waiting: Mike, Tom, Steve, Mark, all solid friends who'd witnessed my marriage slowly strangle me. We played several hands. I was actually ahead, conversation light and ordinary, reminding me what normal felt like instead of constant defense. Around 9:30 my phone vibrated, Grace texting, asking my location and when I'd return, insisting we talk. I ignored it. 10 minutes later another, more insistent, commanding me home now. I silenced the phone and returned to the game. Then came aggressive knocking at Mark's door, not polite, demanding. Mark opened it and Grace's voice rang out before she appeared, sharp, commanding. She strode into the dining area with Monica trailing, both dressed for nightlife rather than interrupting a guy's game. The atmosphere froze. Grace stared at me triumphantly furious, as though she'd caught me red-handed instead of simply playing cards. "We need to talk," she declared, no question, just announcement. Monica stood arms folded, nodding agreement. I remained seated, told her calmly I'd come home later and we could speak then. That wasn't acceptable. She launched into a tirade about me ignoring her, acting immature, needing to confront issues instead of escaping. My friends stared at their cards, visibly uneasy. Grace grew louder, airing private grievances that belonged nowhere near them, calling me selfish and inattentive. Monica added remarks about typical male avoidance tactics. I waited until she finished, then stood slowly, told Mark I was folding that hand, looked at Grace and said, "I'll be home when I decide to be home." The stunned look on her face is burned into memory, like I'd broken some sacred code, allowing her to invade my time at will while denying me any personal limits. I walked past both women, grabbed my coat, and left. Heard Grace shouting behind me, voice now piercing, but I kept moving, got in my car, and drove. Not straight home. I cruised the city 2 hours, processing how she'd actually followed me and attempted public humiliation with Monica as reinforcement, like some staged confrontation. I returned around midnight. Apartment dark, Grace shut in the bedroom. I went directly to the guest room. Next morning brought all-out war. Grace waited in the kitchen, mother already on speaker because clearly this required backup. Her mom launched immediately. How disrespectful, how I'd humiliated Grace, how a true man never abandons his wife. I made coffee while they alternated attacks. I didn't respond, just absorbed the list of my supposed flaws. Grace demanded an apology, said I owed her at minimum that. I replied I had nothing to apologize for. I was entitled to friends, to personal time, to exist without constant oversight. Her mom branded me selfish. Grace called me heartless. I finished getting ready, left for work while they continued cataloging my shortcomings. This cycle repeated 3 weeks. Grace and her mom orchestrating confrontations, Monica always nearby, all treating me as the defect requiring repair. I extended work hours, increased gym time, invented reasons to stay away. Home had become a battlefield. I permanently claimed the guest room, reduced interaction with Grace to bare minimum household logistics. She swung between rage and sudden sweetness, unsure which tactic might regain control, but I'd stopped responding to either. My brother Jake phoned during this stretch, concerned after the long silence, asked if things were all right. I admitted the marriage was collapsing. He renewed the lake house invitation, said it stood whenever needed. I thanked him but said I had matters to settle first. Then came the barbecue at her sister's suburban home, one of those unavoidable family duties. Her entire clan attended, parents, sister and brother-in-law Tom, cousins, naturally Monica too. I arrived, brought the requested beer, stayed courteous. Grace performed the wounded wife role all afternoon, dropping remarks about my constant absence, how I'd changed. Her mom reinforced, her sister murmured sympathy, Monica offered general commentary on male patterns. I stood at the grill flipping burgers, listening to myself dissected as though absent. Tom pulled me aside, asked if I was all right, noted I seemed detached. I told him truthfully I was finished. The marriage existed only on paper now. He looked uneasy but understood. The day crawled. More veiled criticisms from Grace, more probing future questions from her mom. Around 5:00, Grace declared plans with Monica, some downtown concert. No invitation for me, just stated fact. I told her to enjoy it, I'd stay and help clean. She seemed irritated but didn't press publicly. After she and Monica departed, I assisted Tom and her sister with cleanup, chatted politely, then left. Instead of home, I stopped at a coffee shop, opened my laptop, and began searching Chicago divorce lawyers. 3 hours later, I had 5 strong candidates and a concrete plan. Next morning, I contacted the top-reviewed one, Patricia Chun, 20 years in family law. Consultation scheduled for the following week. I told no one, especially not Grace, simply maintained routine while preparing departure. The meeting with Patricia proved revealing. She inquired thoroughly about finances, property, children, none, marriage duration. I explained everything. Joint account, rented apartment, 2 vehicles, my 401k, her student debt I'd partially covered. She outlined Illinois rules. Under 10 years married, no kids, likely straightforward 50-50 asset division, probably no spousal maintenance. She asked about counseling, required question. I said the bond was irreparably broken. She assigned tasks, gather statements, copy documents, compile necessary records. I left her office experiencing something absent for months, genuine hope. That weekend I viewed apartments. Told Grace I was scouting gyms. Instead toured one-bedrooms affordable on my salary. Found a clean, decent unit in a good area, $900 monthly. Applied, got approved in 3 days, signed the lease Friday, paid first month plus deposit, received keys. Escape secured. Grace hardly registered my growing absences. Too occupied planning an Atlantic City girls' trip with Monica. I'd faded into background noise in my own marriage, and rather than resist, I leveraged the invisibility to execute my plan. I moved gradually, one carload of clothes and books while she worked, another with kitchen items, laptop papers, bit by bit, erasing my presence from our shared space. The Friday before serving papers, Grace's mom appeared uninvited, used the spare key, discovered me in the guest room boxing final belongings. She stood horrified in the doorway, demanded explanation, accused me of abandoning her daughter. How dare I consider leaving? I answered evenly. I was organizing. She knew the serious issues, suggested knocking next time or returning the key. She launched into lectures on family loyalty, how my generation quits too quickly. I continued packing, folding shirts, taping boxes, letting her words dissipate harmlessly. I had papers served Tuesday mid-June via process server while at work, avoiding direct confrontation. Phone erupted, 17 missed calls before I answered. Grace's voice mixed screaming and sobbing, demanding answers, asking how I could do this if it was a prank. I explained calmly, no prank. I'd relocated essentials to a new apartment over recent weeks. My attorney would contact hers regarding asset division. She should retain counsel. She cycled through denial, rage, bargaining in days. Denial, telling everyone I was merely stressed, would return once calmer. Anger, 2 a.m. texts full of insults, mothers threatening voicemails. Monica posted thinly veiled social media barbs about dodging toxic men, clearly aimed at me. I blocked them all. Bargaining felt almost pitiful. Grace appeared at my office 3 times in 1 week. Security removed her twice. She wept, vowed change, promised counseling, begged another chance. Each visit I repeated the same: it's finished. Workplace appearances weren't helping. She contacted my friends, called Mark asking him to reason with me. Mark said he backed my choice and ended the call. She even reached Jake somehow. He told her plainly he'd observed 2 years of poor treatment, and I should have exited earlier. None succeeded because those who truly knew us had witnessed the dynamic. Her final dramatic attempt cemented everything. Early August, roughly 6 weeks post-papers, I drove to Jake's northern Wisconsin cabin for a solo long weekend. Jake stuck at work. Remote spot, small lake, no close neighbors. Saturday evening around 7:00, I sat on the dock with a beer enjoying sunset when a car arrived. I assumed Jake perhaps freed up, but then Grace's slurred voice shouted my name. She staggered down the path, obviously intoxicated, wobbling over roots in inappropriate heels and a party dress, not lake cabin attire. She cried and yelled simultaneously. We must talk, couldn't discard 5 years, she loved me, I was heartless. I stayed put on the dock, spoke calmly from distance, urged her not to drive drunk, said she needed to go. She pressed forward anyway, unsteady, heels snagging boards. I saw the fall coming, her foot caught a raised plank, arms flailed uselessly, and she toppled sideways into the water with a massive splash. Scream silenced by cold lake. I dove in instantly, not out of sentiment but basic human decency. grabbed her arm, pulled her to shallows. She coughed, gasped, too intoxicated to manage herself. Heels gone, phone presumably sunk, mascara streaking black trails. I fetched a towel, some of Jake's spare clothes, told her to change and sober up. Called a local cab company, expensive for the distance. While waiting, she kept pleading, saying Monica and her mom were mistaken, that she finally understood. I told her this exact behavior, zero respect for boundaries, irrational actions, was precisely why we ended. Cab arrived 45 minutes later. Driver visibly uneasy, collecting a drenched woman in oversized men's clothing, ruined makeup. I prepaid, instructed him to ensure she reached the nearest hotel 15 miles away safely. Monday, my lawyer Patricia phoned. Someone lakeside had witnessed everything. Drunk arrival, shouting, fall. Jake mentioned it upon arriving next day, said witness statement possible if required. Patricia noted it strengthened our position, demonstrated instability and persistent harassment. Divorce proceeded swiftly afterward. Grace lacked basis to contest. No fault on my side, no remaining fight in her. We mediated once late September, split everything evenly per Illinois law. I retained my car and retirement account, she kept hers. Furniture divided, joint accounts closed. Done. Judge finalized early November, 7 months after she declared "Don't touch me" and proclaimed her dignity. Last I heard, Grace moved in with Monica, took an entry-level bank job around $40,000, spends weekends sharing "empowered woman" quotes online. Her mom still sends occasional emails titled things like "You'll regret this." I delete without reading. Now I'm settled in my own one-bedroom apartment, good natural light, city view. Poker nights twice monthly again, gym 5 days a week. I've rarely felt this calm. Friends comment I look younger, lighter, as though a massive burden vanished. They're correct. I wasted 5 years attempting to satisfy someone who preferred misery beside me over contentment alone. Grace demanded respect. She received it. I respected myself enough to leave. Sometimes preserving self-respect means ending the marriage, and frequently the person shouting loudest about dignity understands it least. Self-respect is controlling others or issuing ultimatums. It's recognizing your value and refusing anything less. The moment I truly grasped that was the moment I reclaimed my life. What are your thoughts on this experience? Share below. Like if it resonated, and subscribe for more genuine stories.